Hello, Honors Algebra. Mr. Lawrence here with another flipped lesson. It's Tuesday, May 8th. Last night you watched a video on how to graph a rational equation, excuse me. And today we are continuing our exploration of that. Two more types of problems. Let me see, do I have that locked in place? I think I do. I want to unlock that so I can move it over a little bit. Hold on. Okay. There we go. Oh, my origin's in the wrong place. There we go. All right, and now I'll lock it again, and we are ready to go. So the first thing I notice is that my restriction occurs at 0, right? So I'm going to have a restriction at the y-axis. Oh, that's strange. I've got two of those things open. All right. So my smartboard is acting very strange. I'll have to do a restart after this. Alright, so I've got an asymptote at the y-axis. Now if you've been paying attention, you should also note that there's going to be another asymptote, and you may not be 100% comfortable yet, but I'm going to venture to game, say it's at y equals -4. Right? Y equals -4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to go down here. Okay, now if I've made a mistake on that, we'll know when I start to do my points. Now, I'm going to use a little t-table, right? And I'm going to plug some values in. And I know that 1 would be a real easy number to work with. So I'll put 1 in. 1 over 1 is 1. 1 minus 4 is -3. So at 1, I'm going to get -3. Okay, now let's see what happens as I get close. Like say, let's do 1/4. Pretty close to 0, but not 0 exactly. All right, well, 1 over 1/4 is 4, and 4 minus 4 is 0. So I'm going to shoot all the way up here to 0. Okay, and now I'm going to pick a number over to the right of 1, and maybe I'll pick, say, 10. I guess I should be filling in these values here. What did I get here? I got -3. Here I got 0. And when I put in 10, I'm going to get 1/10 minus 4. If I have 4 and I take away a 10th, it looks like I'm going to have 9/10, 3 and 9/10 left, 1/10 short of 4. All right, so -3 and 9/10. And that's going to be way out here. All right, getting very close to the place where y equals -4, but never actually getting there. So my part of my graph is going to, do something like this. And then it's going to shoot way up like that. Okay, well, it's not too shabby. All right, now I need to consider what happens with some negative values. Well, let me make another t-table here. Of course, you can just continue your t-table. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to follow a similar approach. I'm going to put -1 in. And when I put -1 in, I'm going to get -5 out, right? -5. So I'll plot that. -1, -5 should be right about there. All right. If I put in, say, -10, all right, I'm going to get -1/10 minus 4, which would be -4 1/10. And so when I plot that one, -10, -4 1/10 is just going to be a hair below it. And then when I put a number very, very close to 0, but on the negative side, like say -1/4, all right, I'm going to end up with -4 here. -4 minus 4 is -8. And so I'm going to end up, let's 10, 9, 8 down here. And this graph will look something like this. It's going to hug, start to curve and break away, and then start to hug the other asymptote. And there we go. If I want to check that on my graphing calculator online, let me see, there's the equation. Yeah, we're having some snafus today. Sorry about that. Okay, seem to have the snafu fixed. I'm going to graph 1 over x and then minus 4. And then I'm going to evaluate it. And there I get a picture. And you can see the asymptotes occurring here. Uh-oh, lost my picture. Not sure what just happened there. All right, let's get rid of the ink layer and see if that brings my picture back. It does not. So, okay, well, you saw it briefly, so I guess that's all that matters. Maybe I'll try refreshing that page. All right, well, there's one more example I want to do. And there it is right there, 1 over x squared minus 4. And I want to point out to you that you should be thinking about doing something with that denominator. Hopefully you are thinking that you want to factor it, and that's good. And this is going to be a unique situation, so I'm going to go ahead and factor that real quick, and I know that's going to turn into the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 2, and I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that because it's looking pretty sloppy. So I'm going to get 1 over the quantity of x plus 2 times the quantity of x minus 2, and then I believe it was plus 1. Well, the restrictions are that x cannot equal plus or minus 2. I don't know if you're able to fill in the blank now, but what this means is we're going to get 2 asymptotes from our denominator. So we're going to get an asymptote here, and then we're going to get an asymptote over here. Okay, and then we have the plus 1 on the end. We're going to pick up an asymptote, a horizontal asymptote, when y equals 1. Okay, so this graph is going to do some kind of cool stuff. What I suspect, and I won't know for sure until I start to use a t-table and such, but I suspect it's going to do something possibly like this. In the middle, I'll get kind of a parabola thing going on, and then I'll get something like that. That's what I suspect. Of course, I could get the mirror image of that, where the curves, oops, don't use the red marker, Mr. Lawrence. You know that the curves go like this, this, and the parabolic type thing is in the middle. I don't know what it's going to do, but I'll use a t-table and see if I can't figure it out. All right, so let me get rid of my speculative drawings. There we go. And I'll just start real simple when x is positive. Make my t-table. And I'll get x and y, and let's see here. I know 2 is an asymptote. So I'll tell you what, I'll try to figure out what happens when x is 3. Okay. And then I'll use some other points there. All right. So when I put 3 in, I'm going to get 5. I'm going to get 1. I'm going to get 1/5. I'm going to get 1 and 1/5. Okay, so at 3, I'm going to get 1 and 1/5. That's pretty close to the asymptote. All right, when I put a number like 10 in, well, I'm going to get 12. I'm going to get 8, 96, 196. I'm going to get 1 and 196, which is pretty darn close to the asymptote. So it's basically just, you know, your eye probably can't tell the difference. You would need a really good way to blow that up, but it's going to be sitting right there. All right, now let's put in a number close to 2, say something like 2 and 1/10. Now, I think it's going to be easier to work from the factored form, but it doesn't matter how you want to do it. All right, so I'm going to get, and I'm actually going to work with the 21 tenths, the mixed number. All right, and so I'm going to do, let's see here, 1 over x squared minus 4, right? The unfactored form, I'm sorry. And when I square this, I'm going to get 21 squared, which I think is 441, over 100 squared, which is, excuse me, over 10 squared, which is 100. I'm going to have to subtract 4 from that. Well, that would be like subtracting 400 over 100, right? That'd be the same as 4. Now I have a common denominator. So the denominator is going to become 41 over 100. But when I do 1 over 41 over 100, that's the same as 100 over 41. Okay, and that's going to be 2 something, and then when I add 1, I'm going to get 3 something. All right, so I know 2, 3. I'm going to be starting to shoot up. Where was I at? 3. So it's going to be shooting up here somewhere. So I was right on my initial prediction. Notice I just used a little guesstimates there. It's going to do something like that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and worry about the negative side of things. And I'll just erase all that work and use my t-table, make a new t-table. And this time I'm going to be focusing on this negative region here. Okay. The negative region over here to the left of negative 2. X value is smaller than negative 2. So I'll tell you what, I'll put negative 3 in. Put negative 3 in here, I get negative 1. That's negative 5. That's positive 5. So I get 1/5. So I'm going to get 1 and 1/5. And look at that, it's even a mirror image. Okay, so 1 and 1/5. All right. What did I put in 10? So I'll put in negative 10. And here I'm going to get negative 8. Negative 12, 96. Yeah, I'm going to get 1 and 1/96 again. And you see how I'm getting the same exact values? Okay, so I'm making my math simple. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and assume that when I put in, see, initially I put in 2 and 1/10, right? I've got to go a little bit, I'm going to go negative 2 and 1/10. And I'm going to get the same value out, that 3 value. Okay, so it's going to do something like that. So then this part of the graph is going to do something like this. Okay, now the interesting part is going to be between negative 2 and 2. So I'm going to need a little more room for my t-table, so maybe I'll do it off to the side here. And I'm going to have x and then y. And I'm going to put the whole numbers in there. I'll definitely put negative 1, 0, and 1. Okay, and remember I'm working from this equation. Sometimes I'll use the factored form of it, sometimes I won't. All right, let's do 0 first. I'm going to get negative 1/4. Negative 1/4 plus 1 is 3/4, so it's going to be right about there. I'm suspecting that that's going to be the vertex of that inner parabola part. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be. So what did I say that was? 3/4. Okay. When I put 1 in, I'm going to get 1 over negative 3, so negative 1/3. So positive 1 will get me at 2/3. So this is going to be a y guy. Negative 1 is going to produce the same thing. Okay, now just to see what's happening, I'm going to put in, say, a positive 1 and 9/10. And I might go to a calculator on that, 1.9. And I think I will, just to save time here. Okay, use my calculator as a good tool. All right, so my equation is 1 divided by 1.9 squared minus 4, right? And then I have to remember to add 1 to it. And I get a negative, about a negative 1.5. So when I start to get really close here to this, I start to go down negative 1.5. I start to go down here. Okay. Now if I do that again with 1 divided by, now I'm going to be careful. I'm going to parenthesis. So I'm going to do another parenthesis, negative, 1.9. I put it in parentheses. It's very important because of that negative. If I leave that negative out, I'm going to get the wrong answer. Minus 4. Then I close my second quantity. Okay, and I can hit enter. I'm just worried about the calculated misunderstanding, so I'm going to add 1 in there. And look at that. I get some perfect symmetry going on, a negative 1.56. And so when I plot that one, it's going to end up being right about there. And then I can say, oh, this part of the graph is going to do something like this. Okay. If you need help visualizing it, again, you can go to your graphing calculator online. And it looks like I'm ready. So my equation is going to be 1 divided by the quantity of x to the second. Whoops. To the second minus 4. Yeah. And then I'm going to add 1 to it. And I think that's ready to graph. Now, at first, it's going to come up a little bit weird. So I'm going to blow it up a little bit. I'm going to change my maximum and minimum y values, make them smaller, and you'll see the well, here, let's go with, say, 3, negative 3 and 3, and you should be able to see the asymptotes a little bit better. Okay, so let's try that again, and there you go. You can see the asymptotes showing up in the perfect parabola. And then, of course, there's one right there. Okay, that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night.